Okay. The purpose of this meeting is to gather feedback about the dashboard, the production dashboards, and about the data that we have there. So we want to know your feedback from a third-party contractor manager perspective to understand if the data that we have on that dashboard is helpful and if it makes sense. And then if we have some time, we would like to show you a part of the production request journey as well. But the dashboard would be the most important thing. So let me share my screen. So let's start. So as a third-party contractor manager, I would log in into the PaaS platform here, and then feel free to interrupt me anytime. Then I have this task board has my homepage. So this is the first page that I will see after logging the platform. And here I have the tasks that are assigned to me and to my team. Then I have the production dashboard. That is the dashboard that I was talking about. So this dashboard is to help the third-party contractor manager understand how the production is going, what are the orders that are on the pipeline, and even more data that I have in this page. But let's start with this first section, the production overview. And here we have some metrics around the performance of the machines and also the production itself. Like here we have the total production, the amount of boxes that we already produced, the speed per box, and then we have the nano capacity, machine utilization, and machine performance. And all of these KPIs are being compared to yesterday, because here we have a filter that is the comparison period that we can select the period that we want to compare the data with. So if I want to compare with the data from last week, instead of yesterday, I could have here last week. And all of this content here on the production overview section would be related to these filters here on the top. Then we have a section with the changeovers. And here we have a KPI about the average time of one changeover. Then we have the total number of changeovers and the total time of those changeovers. And we have always the mini chart and the comparison with yesterday. One thing that I forgot to mention is that these mini charts here on the KPIs, we have those mini charts here and also here. Those mini charts, if I click there, and we don't have that page designed, but in the development part, they already developed this. So when I click in the mini chart, I will see that chart, but bigger. And I can select different date ranges. So for example, if I want to check the total production of a specific period instead of the current one, I can click here on the mini chart and then I can select the date that I want to check. And I will have a big chart with more detail. Okay, so, and here it will happen the same. So if I click here on the mini charts, I will see that chart in bigger in another view. Then we have the order status summary with the KPI on the orders completed. And then we have the number of status with, the number of orders with the different status. And here this metric is again comparing to yesterday. So for example, the orders with overdue status, we had an increase from yesterday. So this amount is higher than yesterday. Then we have here a section with the events, with a graphic to show here the different the events with the different status. And if we average, we can see more information about each part of the graph of the charts. And here we have the big numbers. So the total number of events, overdue, critical, and warning. So this is.
Can you give some examples of
Yes.
what those events might be, please?
Yes, so these events can be related to the machine performance. For example, if there was something wrong with a machine or with a line, those would be the events here. Okay, and just one more note. So this dashboard is like a summary of some parts of the production, but then we have the other menus here that we can see more detailed information. So for example, if we want to check some specific events that occurred, we can go to events, and then we will have a list with all the events, and we can check more details about it. The same for the orders. So if we'll go to request and orders, we will see those in more details. Okay, so what's your opinion on this production overview about the KPIs and the metrics that we have? Do you think this would be helpful for you?
My point of view, I think it's good to have this summary, of course, you know, as a front screen to, I'm just trying to, so all lines means that there'll be different components on the production line. So that brings a summary of the performance from the line end to end, really, you're talking about here. So, and then if we want to drill down into a specific line, then we can actually drill down into a specific line or part of that line to understand the events or stoppages or performance of that part of the line.
Exactly. Here on the lines, we have all lines selected, but if we can check the performance and the metrics about one specific line, we can select here on this dropdown, on this filter.
I think one of the things that sticks out in my mind, the comparison period is useful, but I think what could be more useful, again, Rich, I'm happy for you to challenge or that, but is we're going to be doing a lot of different activities in this line, and it's almost comparing the last the activities and the performance against each of the activities rather than against the date. So to me, you know, the last time we run a certain activity, we want to measure the performance against the last performance of that activity, because you know, if we have 12 different activities identified for this line, so every one of them will have different run rates, different performance levels, different complexity. So sometimes it's not measuring the day before's performance, but actually more like activity performance.
And I'd echo that comment there around what we're looking at when I'm looking at this where is this going to sit in our operation. It's a production facility that makes lots of different products on any given day. So the actual, for me, things like total production, it's not really an important metric because I'm more interested in which product is meant to be running, and it may be running, say, 2,000 units. How are we doing against the plan of those 2,000 units? And how are we therefore achieving the total plan of the day? The number that we achieve is going to flex so much that a particular number isn't important, but a number against the delivered plan is. Are we on track to deliver that day's plan? Are we off track? Is it to Richard's point, Richard Pinkerton's point, too many Richards on this call. Which production run is causing us the problem? If we're behind, which one was it that caused the problem, or is it a more general issue across the line kind of thing? Because similarly, production speed's good, but to Richard's point, they're going to differ between the different formats potentially. I don't know how much. So it's production speed against a target that I'm looking for. Are we on track to deliver that production speed against what we budgeted for, what we expected to be achieving in that day? And then, yes, capacity, utilization and performance are good metrics to know that everything's running well and the site's on track to deliver. But really, because we run on so many different products and we'll be changing over, we'll want to look more at, are we delivering today's plan? Are we delivering this week's plan? So if we're behind on a day, does that risk the rest of the week, or have we got buffer to catch that back up? What's it going to do? Now, that may be in subsequent tabs that you've got here, that may be too much to show on a summary page. But I think if I'm looking at it, what I want to see is, are we on track with the plan? Are we making what we're meant to be making at the right time? And particularly, I see it's useful for planners when they want to know that they've got something that's a priority for a customer. If they can come here and see that line's running on track and it's going to be completed on time, they can update and advise the business that yes, things are on track, or they can come in here and see immediately, big red light, know that the current line that we're really desperate for, we've got a problem, it's not running, or we're running behind. Something like that would be useful to a planner to inform the business of how we're doing.
Okay, makes sense.
And I think in order status probably have got a certain amount of that. Richard would say, in that order status, because it does say, I suppose it's how we sequence them orders to say, is that order on track to be completed, or is it overdue now, or whatever? So the order status probably will give us some of that, how we set that up. But
okay, but for example, as you were saying, so this kind of metrics, the achieved versus plans, is more important than the total production, for example, right?
Yeah. Yes, for the ultimate number that we're making in a week varies a lot for us. So I'm not too worried whether we make 100,000 this week and 80,000 next week.
Okay.
But that could be that's because some products take longer to produce than others, and we look at it from a sort of a manpower, labor hours perspective as well. So, I may not make 100,000 cases, but I'm fully utilizing the asset. So I don't have any more capacity. So that's more. So it's not necessarily the total number, the maximum I made. I'm not worried about it. But am I on track? So that first metric there, am I achieving my production plan? Yes, no. Am I going to deliver it this week? Yes, no. Am I utilizing the asset and getting the most out of it? Equally as important. So.
Okay, and then to Richard Pinkerton point about the order status summary. Yes, here we have the status of the orders, but do you think that instead of having just a number, we could have some more information related to at least to the critical events, so overdue, critical, and warning?
I guess what would be useful for a planner is if we've got something that's overdue or critical, what is it? Can it be what product ID we're making or something like that? So they can look and go, critical, it's this production item that we're making. That may be too much detail in there, and it may just be better to have the link. So it's, like I say, it's one or two items.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm just trying
to worth showing some of your other
yes.
other tabs, mightn't it? I think it's a good number of. This is all fantastic feedback. I think a good proportion of it will be covered in the other tabs. I know it's slightly out of scope for what you were going to consider in this call, but maybe a quick overview of the other ones would be a good idea.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I think in that order status, I think it is useful. I think it's almost in the summary screen. We just want to know, is that order status, are we on track or not? And then if we're not on track, just to be able to link in to them to go to the next behind that to say, well, where are we now behind? What orders are we behind on? But maybe that front screen can just give us you know, a green tick or an orange or a red, just to say we are now behind in the orders that we should have completed to what has been actually completed. And then the planner can go straight in to see where the risk is, you know, for them.
Okay.
Look, I hope that, you know, it's really good. It's really, I want to, this is really positive. Like, so you're giving us a lot of really good stuff here that we can build or work with you on. So please don't take it as criticism. It's just, we want to try and make sure that it is fit for, you know, the people that's going to be using it day to day. And I think this is a really good, it's a good layout. I think it's clear. It's just making sure we've got the right information there that's going to work for everybody, you know.
Sure. Completely. Okay, and just one more note here on this page. So this is the summary of production, as I said. But then, for example, we have the planned orders, and here we will have more details about each order. And by default, this would be order by status. But then we can order through periods or time left to finish and so on. So here I would have a more detailed version of the planned orders than I have here above. So this is a summary. And then here on the same screen, I have a list with the planned orders. If the production progress is okay, or if it's not started yet, and so on. And then I can click on each one, and I will go to the detailed page of that production, of that planned order or of that production request, with all the information related to that request or to that order.
No, that's exactly, I think, what we were alluding to. So that's really good, because that's exactly what the planner wants to know is, you know, how much of the production has been delivered, how much is still to do, and are we behind or are we actually on track? So that's really good, and that'll be by order. So that really works.
Will you be able to identify them from just the ID, or would you need a brief description of like an of what it is that's being packed?
We can work off of the ID because the planners will know their codes and you can search for it. I guess it's if someone else comes in looking at a general level and sees something behind, they might not necessarily know, but it's not too hard to find the code. It's a nice to have. Yes, a small description would be nice to have. I'm just looking at the period. I mean, how that's a week's plan, is it, or is it a? What's the time? How much time frame are we looking at in that window? Because
yes. Yeah, so these periods, these are just placeholders, but the period should be related to that specific planned order. So these should be different. So if we are saying that this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 needs to be delivered within, I don't know, 4 weeks, that's the period of this, sorry, of this order.
Yeah, just to be clear, normally it'll be 4 hours rather than that's the type of times we work to, is it'll be 4 to 6 hours, or but not, I mean, just, you know, we're talking about we could be doing 3 or 4 we could be doing 3 or 4 planned orders in that line on that day, and the day would be split up into the different orders, so it'll be in a day period rather than on a, you know, week or month period, just to put in the context.
Okay, so do you think that this period should be with hours instead of days, or hours and days probably?
Yeah, it's just understanding the flexibility of that window, because like I say, at the minute what we give to our production team is a week's plan. So we say in this week we need X quantity of all of these SKUs, and then they will do the job of sequencing that into the daily slots or run it over 2 days, then switch to this line, etc., etc. And then we can have the visibility of what that plan is, but what we don't currently have is the performance metrics to know exactly where we are in the week, which was what I think this, with it built into the plan, saying, right, well, this is due to start at 9 o'clock on Tuesday and it will run till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. we can use that information if we're critical to say, yes, it's on track, it's going to finish at 1 o'clock, the stock will be back down in the warehouse. So that's where we could get to. Whereas if it just showed the week it's in and whether it's done or not done and it's due within that week, it's less helpful to the planner, but would still be good. But that, I think ultimately we'd want to compare it to when it's scheduled to be produced to a more narrow time span.
Okay.
And I think the Rich Woods, we need to understand what way you're sequencing the orders on the nano line to understand, because at the minute we wouldn't put it in by layer that it's to be run on that. What GXO would do at the moment in their Nulogy system, they would show which day the order's running on, but not the time that the order would be running. So so we just need to understand when we're sequencing orders on the nano line, could that information, because we have to be careful here. We don't want to be putting in a load of, or a lot of, it could take a lot of maintenance to put every hour of every order into the system, and that's not where we would really want to be, you know. So, you know, we talked, remember the last time, about how Nano would look at the orders and sequencing in the right order so we get the most efficiency out of the Nano line while it would be operating. But then when it does that sequencing, can then, let's take it out of that, almost, you know, it can be downloaded from there rather than somebody manually entering that information. And so that's just something we need to be understand, that period, how we get that information in here.
Yeah, for sure. I think that, like you said, that would be automated. So as I understand it, you would provide planned orders on the Wednesday or the Thursday generally before it starts on the Monday. So you'd provide that as either SAP or CSV, and that would be uploaded. And then the software would plan a first draft of what it thinks would be the most efficient production schedule to make sure everything's done during that week, which is kind of a Gantt chart showing time blocks for each line, what would be doing when. But the production manager would have the option to drag and drop each of those production blocks as they wish. You've got a screen that shows that kind of thing, haven't you, Sophia?
Yes. Let me show you.
But yeah, it's a really good point about the period, because yeah, like as we've discussed previously, it is probably just a 1 week period that you've got really good sight of, isn't it? And then beyond that is a bit more hypothetical about what might be happening.
Yeah, it's this one.
And so each line means one complete nano line. So in the first instance, there'd be one location and one line within it, so you wouldn't really have too many things to look at. But maybe a couple of years down the line, we might have hundreds of these things churning out millions of products for you.
I hope so.
Yeah, and that's a pretty clear kind of visual representation of what I was expecting it to look, kind of to show, kind of thing. The days, the times, you know, start, finish, obviously the changeover as needs be, and then, like I say, we can then track the greens and the reds and see how it plans out. And like I say, we will give you a, you know, a sort of an 18-month look, so it can extrapolate out as far as it wants. And I appreciate that would be a theoretical. So
yeah, so we've got some differentiation between the planned orders, which we understand are what's definitely needed the following week, and then a more long-term capacity planning view on what you think is going to be needed. And there's going to be slightly different ways of viewing this. So this plan, we can set the viewing period, can't we, Sophia?
Yes, we can select here the periods, and this would be adapted to the period that we selected here on the filters. And we even can select a specific line. Instead of looking at those 5 lines, we can select just 1 line or 2 lines to see on this view.
Yeah, it looks really good. That looks really good.
Hey, Glenn, by the way, thanks for joining.
Hi, everyone. Sorry I'm late. I had a clash.
Hi.
No problem.
Hey, Glenn.
Okay. But let me check. So back to the dashboard.
Just a question on that, because I think I
Yes.
saw it in the corner. But does it keep the history
Here?
Yeah, because I can see the dates changed. Does it show backwards in time what we actually did produce previously and stuff?
Yes.
It's not a requirement. It's just a whether it does or it doesn't.
Yes, but I think so. If we can keep the track of the previous tweaks, I think we can select here the week before or 2 weeks before, and we can check what happened there.
Okay, sorry. Please carry on. Thank you.
And so your feedback about Nulogy showing the day that something will happen rather than the time. Presumably that's because that's the view that Nulogy shares with you, but the actual plant manager would have the hour by hour and even minute by minute detail. Is that right? So that's just the way that Nulogy is set up to share that information with you, or is that a limitation in the system that we could maybe improve on?
I would have to talk to GXO, to be honest with you. I don't believe that they would get into like hour by hour planning of them process orders that we talk about. I think the process orders would be more daily. Well, they're a quantity, but they would have them starting on a day, and if, as Rich already alluded to, they may run over onto the other day, but there'd be one process order for a quantity for a job, you know, to do, and then they'd move on to the other. So they would more plan it on the day to make sure then that the materials are scheduled to be on the line, ready to run. So I think dailies, as much as they would go into that detail, they wouldn't go hour by hour, Rich. But I'm not saying the information could be there, but we need to just check with GXO on that bit itself. Unless you know, Rich, Rowden.
No,
But
I don't know what Nulogy's capabilities are beyond that it has that day kind of thing, and we have tended towards optimizing run sizes towards a shift a day, you know, and
Okay,
running
interesting.
those kind of volumes because it is more efficient for the teams planning these things to not have to make changeovers during. It isn't to say they don't run half shifts and whatever, but we do try to run sensible volumes that match up and optimize timings of shifts, etc.
That's a really good detail to hear. Thank you. That yeah, explains a bit about how those things work. Hopefully that's something that Nano can free you up to order a bit more about what you really need rather than worrying about how long makes sense for the most efficient way of doing it.
yeah, no, agree.
Okay, then coming back to the dashboard again. So we have the overview, and then we have the planned orders, and then we have some more sections that would be less important, and we would like to have your feedback on those as well. So some metrics around the labor situation, some metrics around material tracking, sustainability statistics, and supplier statistics. Do you think there's anything that is less important, or do you think there's anything missing here?
I think on labour, for example, Nulogy does quite a bit on labour as it is at the minute. So the third party system is doing quite a bit of tracking of labour and managing labour, but that doesn't mean, you know, we have to think about the different co-packing environments that Nano could be going into. So there may be other co-packing environments where we wouldn't have that level of detail on labour. So it could be useful. I think it's one of them that I think it needs to be probably optional, because we may have systems already in place, so we wouldn't want to be duplicating information, you know. But of course, you know, we need to ensure that the nano line is being resourced to the right amount and the right efficiency and the right level for the number of jobs. So it still could be useful for nano, but I just don't want to end up having to manage two labor systems. That's all, or that there. So just we have to be careful on the duplication around that. I would say.
Sure.
Material tracking, again, we're probably doing a certain amount of material tracking in our SAP and in Nulogy, so we're doing it in both at the moment. But I think because of the way the Nano line is set up, Nano will be able to measure its own material usage and how it can manage that. So I think that still will be important for nano, the material tracking, because especially when it's forming the case and using the compression members and things like that. That's all relevant information, I think, to how efficient that has been obviously managed. And I'm looking at you, Richard Woods, for this, but I see that as useful for the nano operation itself.
Sure.
Obviously we do track material variances in our systems, but it'll be useful. On sustainability, if you scroll down.
Again, the only thing I'll say, and it is a high level number there, but obviously because we'll be running so many different versions, you just got to be careful of what is efficiency measuring at a high level. It's going to have to be against a target of that combined production view. Because if you've got 4 or 5 different lines products running in very different formats, you're going to have different efficiencies from the different lines, different outputs. What it's against a target almost on a line, it's quite hard to get an efficient view, I guess, overall potentially that really means something. But I may be completely wrong.
It's definitely useful to see if we're wasting material or not in the production run. This is important because it's not just about the loss of efficiency of the line if it's not running well, but if we're actually damaging material and wasting a lot of material, then we need to identify that quite early so that we can take the right corrective action. So I think it is useful. I think, so it is important we do that and we're not running the line in an inefficient way. So I think it's useful, but I agree. I think it's just making sure how we get the information and that we're really measuring that in an accurate way. But I think that'll be a bit of development as we go through, probably.
Okay. Okay. And then sustainability statistics would be related to the material tracking, right?
Yeah.
And supplier statistics as well. So these last 3 would be related to each other. So if we are saying,
with that last one where it shows the statistics, would that be something you could replicate for if we are having particular problems with certain products on the line? If it's always product 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that is causing the downtime, that you can do something for that almost that shows the worst performing lines, the ones that most frequently appear instead of a supplier as a production run, because we use that kind of information in our monthly reviews where we're looking for the trends of which products are causing us a problem, which ones should we optimize, which ones do we need to get support in to work on. That kind of top line view or sort of trending summary is very useful for a monthly or whatever review.
Okay, yeah, makes sense. We can
I think supplier statistics, I think, again, we do have to be careful in this one because we're already doing we do a PaaS score for vendor evaluation scorecard that we do for suppliers in Globe. And it is basically about the delivery of the materials against the delivery date of the purchase order within that 24-hour period. And I'm not sure how we're going to get the information. It sounds like a duplication then to try and put the same information into this system, unless you tell me something different, but it just sounds like a duplication of what we've already got to a certain extent in SAP Globe.
Depends how much of the materials going into Nano we are managing through Globe.
Yeah.
That would be the only, if board and whatever else is being managed by DS Smith, for example, we wouldn't see those impacts in BES.
No, I agree, but I think it's supplier 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
Gives me a thing that it's a lot of suppliers. That's the components are coming into the line to run on the line, and I'm just not sure how we can get that information. And all I'm saying is that I think that's another part that we need to see what value to drive. At the minute, I just don't see the value that it's driving for the amount of effort to put the information in there at this stage, because we already measured in other areas. So I just need to be convinced that it'll drive the right value in this system. That's all.
Okay. But we can put these sections as optional, and then once we have a more clear answer on those, we can choose if we want to see those statistics or not.
Yeah, I think so. I think, I think there's a lot of really good stuff that adds a lot of value, and I'd rather make sure we're getting that right. That list to me is something that's more a nice to have than adding really a lot of value. And I'm not sure the effort it's going to take to keep the information updated till the value that I'm going to get back out. So I need to understand what's the inputs required from the team to be able to get this information back again, and does it drive the right value? That's all I'm saying. So I'm not ruling it out, but I said we just need to understand, how easy it is to maintain.
Okay, right.
Would I be right in thinking that most of this would be captured automatically from the Nano systems? I'm not expecting there to be any manual data entry required for any of these views. Is that right, Sophia?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
but sorry.
Sorry, I was just sorry. I was just about to say that all of these should be automatically, because manual work is not what we want for this. But we need to understand if we can collect this data from the Nano, about suppliers, even about the material. That's what we need to understand. If we can collect that data, the data appearing here should be automatically, but that's something that we need to confirm.
I was imagining that supplier here meant a co-packer that was using a Nano line, or is it somebody that's supplying parts into the co-packers?
It can be both, probably, because this can be for the third-party contractor manager as well, not just the co-packer. So the suppliers needs to be related with Nano, of course, but it can be different because of the role of the person that is logged in. So if it's a plant manager that is using this platform, the suppliers would be some, and then if it's a plant manager, the suppliers can be different. Does this make sense?
It makes sense. I'm not sure what those would be then that the co-packing plant manager would see on that, and I don't know if we'd want them to see how they're performing compared to other people on their Nano, or maybe we do want that.
Okay.
I think there's no doubt that if I can't run the Nano line because I don't have the materials that has been delivered to allow me to run the Nano line, then I want to have that history of the reliability of the delivery in. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not sure just where this starts, and because if you imagine we get a delivery of materials into our plant, and then materials then are free to use on the Nano line. So the way we measured the minute is we've booked a delivery in on a day and a day for delivery, and we measure the supplier performance against delivering on that day. Then how it cascades into the Nano line, the Nano's expecting, we had planned that order on the Nano line, so we're expecting all the materials and components to be there to run that Nano line. And this is the bit I'm not sure how this then pulls that information in to say all the materials is here and I can now run my order, or I've got materials missing because of a delivery hasn't been met, so I cannot run my order. I just think there's more work around this to make sure, as I say, it's about what do we need to, what's the inputs to make sure we're driving the right value out again. So just say, I don't think we'll come to a conclusion here today. I do think we just have to look at this in a bit more detail. What do we really want to achieve from this one?
Okay. Okay, sure.
So in the wider context, Richard, what we're thinking is that so there is a bill of materials for a product, and that is typically physical things. So it's the pack, it's the primary, it's the secondary. There are also going to be extra elements that we need to help run the machine. So if, for example, we needed the obvious one is if we had a digital picture of the item, then we could hopefully set the machine offline without needing to train the machine on a new SKU. So we would have an enhanced bill of materials that would have these digital assets in it. So we would track every aspect of that and only advise the planner of what can actually be run because of everything that's being seen by it. Once you've got that, there's then metrics that you can take from that performance. So it might be that we decided that we had to do a 3D scan of every primary so that we can set the machine, for example. So we would need to have sight of who's doing that and when are the particular assets available. So it's just trying to think a bit more functionally of how do we make this useful. What we're looking at is if this is true packaging as a service, we're not going to receive any income unless that machine's running. So we need to make sure that we're planning everything that's possible to run. And it may differ from the order that the customer would want to run them in. But if these are the only jobs available to us, these are what we're going to suggest to run. So that's the thought process behind it.
Yeah, no, look, yeah, and I get it. We want to run the line, and we want to make sure the materials is there to run the line, run that line efficiently. But as I say, we're doing a purchase order in Globe that the suppliers delivered against that purchase order, and that's probably days, if not a week, before we're actually planning to run that production. It's not this, hours before we're running that production, because we're even challenging our third parties to make sure the materials are there before you plan your order, because too often then we don't deliver on the order and we've committed that order to a customer and our materials don't turn up in time, for example. So we're saying, look, we actually, by a Thursday of your week that you run that order, we need to have them materials delivered and actually on the site before we plan the order for the following week, for example. So that's been managed in Globe, and we're actually doing obviously our vendor scorecard against that delivery, against the purchase order. And what I'm saying is then, how do we get that information into Nano to then do what you're trying to do? And that's what I'm saying is that a manual input or is it an automatic upload?
If there is value in it, we would be arranging for interfaces to be written to get that information. What we're trying to do is make this as simple as possible. So if there's 3, 4, 5, 6 systems that you have to go in today to piece your function together, we're trying to provide that one-stop shop, that global overview. So it's really fast for you to go in and out, and I just have this one-stop shop that says, right, what can I do today? If everything's green, I can do whatever I want because everything's possible. Yeah. If I've got some greens and some reds and some oranges, I need to be a bit more particular about the order that I'm going to run. So we're not necessarily looking to replace the functionality of your existing systems. We're just trying to make it simpler and that you've got this one-stop dashboard. That's all.
Yeah, and I think that there, you're absolutely right. Like, I would love to see that when I've got my planned orders for the following week, that I can see on a Friday afternoon that I've got all my materials ready to go and I've got no challenges for the following week. If I've got a one-stop shop to do that, fantastic, great. So it's just to understand and say back to where do we get that information from and making sure it's not too manual to upload it. As long as we can pull it automatically, then I agree, it'd be great to have, but we just have to make sure we can pull it automatically from Globe or whatever.
And we're not underestimating the difficulty of that. We're just saying that if everything was able to be done, this is the scale of our vision.
Yeah. No, look, I'm totally aligned. I think, as I say, it's just see what we can pull out from either SAP or the new Litchi system that GXO runs. Fine with that. And yeah.
In the beginning, we'd probably start small, and we would have the ability to import like an Excel spreadsheet. So if you could export from your other system and import to ours, we would represent that. A bit further down the track, we say, this seems to be working, let's put that interface in. So rather than trying to boil the ocean on day one, let's build up to it.
Yeah, no, okay.
Yeah, exactly. And even we have other menus that we have the feature to upload SAP or upload an Excel to collect data and to show that data, but in a chart view or in a list view or so on. So we already have that kind of capability here on the platform. Okay, and about this dashboards, do you think there's anything important that is missing here that you would like to see on this summary screen?
And I said the one to me is obviously then tracking the performance of the ones that we've been making. So that I've covered that one off.
So on that one, Richard, so do you guys have a target? Let's just call it efficiency for now, whatever that would mean. Do you have a target efficiency per product? So do you look at a job to be done and think, right, we should get 80% efficiency, whatever that metric is, for that line, or do you expect to have 80% for everything, or do they differ due to the job that needs to be done for that particular job? Do you know what I mean?
I basically expect to pay a rate for a product. So if I'm paying £1 for a case, making the maths easy, I expect them to get that done. And the efficiency is almost the burden of them. They've budgeted it to run at X per minute. If they exceed that, they're in the plus. If they're failing to achieve that, well, that's on them. And that's the very basic definition of how it's done. Now, obviously, we run an open book with GXO, and it's slightly different in that. But in a basic nutshell, I'm not as interested in the efficiency because I expect them to be, as the co-packer, monitoring that and improving that, and then we'll be looking at the ones that cost the most amount of money and say, what can we do to optimize that first, or what changes can we make to make that less costly to us?
Right.
So that's how we would look at the efficiency. How much is it costing us to make this product?
So we track everything, and then you want your attention drawn to the ones you want your attention drawn to. So
yeah, we spoke earlier about having a target. So if we look at production, if we're going to make 10,000 cases of a particular product, I'm not worried about how many cases I've made. Are we on track to make that in the time we said? Yes or no? You know, how many of those? How many times does that SKU 1, 2, 3, 4 fail to deliver on its optimal target rate? Is it better or worse? Which ones aren't doing well? And then is it because the supplier's not delivering the good quality material? Is it because it's a tricky pack? Is it because it's not? Whatever. Then we can use that information to drill down into the why. But something that says, right, we've got 50 products. The worst performing one on all of these metrics is this one. Let's all look at that and see where we should focus our efforts on improving. That's kind of where you want to go to. Or where I think you want to go to. Mr. P may say something different.
But I think, we have 12 activities that we've identified, and every activity is going to have a different run rate, let's face it. So it's going to be, the number of cases per hour is going to be different. And your efficiency would be measured against whatever we have set the standard at for that hour's production. So if it's 20 cases an hour, that's what you'd be measured against. And it's your efficiency against delivering that 20 cases per hour for that activity. If we then change on to the next activity, then it could be 40 cases an hour. So you're going to be measured against 40 cases per hour for that next part of the production. So it's just making sure we are clear if we're measuring against whatever the standard run rate is set in the system. And obviously that's driving a standard cost. And then what we do weekly is that we go through with GXO all our standard costs against them run rates and say what has been plus or minus 10%. And then we target the ones that are either minus 10% or plus 10% to say, do we need to change our standard cost? Because we've obviously underestimated, we can actually perform much better. Because obviously the key thing is to drive our standard cost down, because that helps drive more volume in the long term for our business. If it's a negative, then we need to review what have we made the mistake in when we set the standard cost, and then we might have to increase our standard cost, or we may have to put a project team in to then look at the performance and try and bring it back to standard cost. So that's what we're doing every week with GXO. Every Thursday we review last week's standard cost and run rates, and then say why are they we go plus or minus 10. We only do the ones that are plus or minus 10% and then manage that. So that's the type of information I think, Glenn, we need here, is to say, against that activity, we've set ourselves a standard. Are we delivered to that standard or not? If we're not, then we can investigate.
Yeah.
Okay.
So are your per product targets, are they dynamic? So is next week's target based on the last best good? So if you achieved 105% of a target, does that 105 then become the target next week?
No.
Not necessarily, no.
No, we would change it. We'd probably update the quarterly or something like that, unless
Right.
it was unless we were significantly, because obviously that changes your whole budget for your whole area. You know, if you start to if you started to change your budgets every week, you just couldn't keep up to that. We try to get our standards as accurate as possible, because, as I say, we want to be. To be honest, I don't want a plus or minus. I want it to be bang on every week, because that means that we're giving the business the right costing for that product. But of course, if we do identify where the machine's running better in certain products, or materials running better in certain products, then we want to adjust it. So we had adjusted then for the next DF, and that would be the following quarter. And then whatever's left of the year, we would set our standard against that from the beginning of the next quarter, Glenn. Or we would even agree, we might even do a quarter trial to say, make sure we can deliver this consistently over a period of time. And then if we do, then we would set it for even the following quarter. That's what we would do. But that's a collaborative conversation with the service provider and ourselves to try and make sure we get the right standard cost in there,
Yeah. Yeah, because what we're looking at internally is, when it comes to Nano specifically, that there'll be, if you guys were going to run one thing once ever, then you wouldn't go to the trouble and the time to create a multi-head gripper, for example. But if you came to us and said there's a year's worth of these, then it then makes sense to look at, is it worth investing in that multi-head gripper? Because over that year, it makes, what's my break-even point? At what point does the volume equate to something specialist like that? So we're already having the discussions to say, how do we run that equation? How do we identify the relevant bits of information that we need to know when it is the right time to do that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that, we need to get the right balance between, where we put a bit of labor on to do a one-off job, to take that labor out to then try and replace it with automation. So we might actually say there is part of the line we'll just leave as manual, because it's easy to slot somebody in for an hour every so often to do it, rather than, as you say, invest in 200,000 this gripper head, a nice thing to have that's never going to be utilized. So I totally agree. I think that's exactly the way we'd want to work as well,
So part of the modeling that we're doing with MTC is to try and work out, is there a way that we can have this sort of algorithm that helps us exactly that, not just a multi-head gripper, but when is it more cost effective to put a person in rather than a specific line piece? So we're trying to systemize that, but there's a lot of moving parts in it.
Yeah,
I can imagine. Yeah, no,
just conscious of time for everyone. There was, and you may have more tabs you want to show us, which may cover this off. I know, Glenn, when we spoke a while back, we did talk about if we've got something new coming along, a new product format, there almost being a sort of a check sheet of getting it ready to run on the production line, kind of thing. Have you got the artwork? Have you got the images? Have you got?
That's that sort of enhanced bill of materials tracking piece.
Yeah, just that tracking kind of piece to say, yes, we've got this in the plan, it's in the forecast in 4 weeks' time. Are we green light, or are we amber, or what are we waiting for, almost, kind of thing?
That's the key part of that look ahead bit. The further you look out, there'll be more of those, and then as they track towards current day, they need to be going from red to amber to green. So we'll call out when. So we'll get to a point of knowledge where we can predict how long it takes to get a thing, and we'll then start to flag that as an early warning system that says, by tomorrow you must have this thing in place, otherwise this order's at risk, even though it's like 2 weeks out. So yeah, we're trying to piece all that together.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Right, I'm not sure, we've only a few minutes left. So is there anything specifically you want feedback on?
It was more on this dashboard to understand if we are missing any important information. But I think this point that we talked about, the product rates or product targets, we need to add that section here. And I was thinking, Glenn and Rich, that this can be related to the box modeling and iris, right? So if we are saying that for this product, we are taking too much time, or it is costing us too much, we can have a call to action to the iris part, and we can change the artwork or the product to be more efficient and to cost less.
Yeah, I think that's important to understand, that if we're not performing against the standard run rate we've set, then we need almost a flashing light to say we need to investigate why we haven't run to that standard.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if it's with trends, if we see a trend where we're just not meeting the standard, then we can then put a team in to really look at it in more detail.
Yeah, so that might be a good one to sort of investigate on its own. What are the criteria that we could use to help draw your attention to areas that could be improved?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
So the iris thing was, if you said to us that there's this 1,000 boxes is going to go to Asda, for example, and if we had the shelf data for Asda in our iris database, we could compare what the ideal sizing of the case would have been if you had that flexibility compared to the design that we did. And it's then coming back with almost like an efficiency score that says, for this particular criteria you were 80% efficient, but for this other one you were 95. And it's just checking where those balances are inside each of these SKUs. It's that type of information we'll be trying to pass back. Does that sound useful as well, that type of thing?
Yeah, like I don't know where we're getting to it, but aspirationally, what I would like to be able to say, and we kind of alluded to it in our call the other day, is if we have got certain channels, we're going to be putting a specification of box together with the compression joints, and we want the most agility we can get out of them when we're actually making that box. So it could be that still a Nescafe pouch, but actually instead of it going to Asda next week, we're going to actually make it and it's going to go to a cash and carry. Well, do we need to do something different on the compression joints to go to a cash and carry or a wholesaler, or actually does it go to e-commerce and it actually needs something slightly different? And that's where aspirationally I'd like to get to at some stage, to be able to say, not only we're just looking at a specific SKU, but we're actually looking at the end to end. What is the customer requirement?
Exactly where we want to get to, Richard. Exactly there.
And that's exactly where, I want to see that, how we can, from an process order going on the system to say, this process order, 90% it's going to go to this channel, and we need this specification of box to make sure we deliver that channel. But actually, we need a lesser specification if we're going to go to this channel, so we can actually really drive the efficiency and cost. And that's where I see where Nano can drive the real value. In the medium. We mightn't do that in day one, of course, but that's something in the database that we need to build up and be able to pull, and a lot of that will be the statistical stuff, wouldn't it be, that we really drive on.
Yes, it could be in parallel with actual operations and running stuff. In parallel, in the background, we are piecing together additional information about those specific SKUs that we then start to put together like a portfolio of features that we could then start to suggest at points once we've got enough data to do comparisons with, and then start to be predictive.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, just briefly, looking at each line and which one may be performing or maybe not, then hopefully Nano will have the intelligence to be looking at each stage of the process and be able to say, okay, this product is slow because picking is a particular issue with this product, or this the box form machine slower than other products. So please look at box design to see if this can be improved. So that should definitely be fed back in here as well, in terms of intelligent suggestions on what could be optimized to improve each line.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's like a design for manufacture mindset, isn't it?
Continuous improvement.
Okay, no, really good.
Yeah, thank you so much for your feedback. It was very valuable. Do we need to talk about anything else, or are we good? Okay.
I've got nothing more from me.
Yeah, no, really good. I think I do like the layout. I think it's very clear. It's showing the information very clearly. So it looks really, really good. So so well done for that. And you know, as I say, we're talking about fine tweaking here and just making sure it's we get the right information. But really good. Thank you.
Sure. Yes, we will improve this with your feedback, the feedback that you gave us. Thank you.
Okay.
Have
All
a great
best then,
Christmas
everybody.
and New Year's, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Richard and Richard.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Happy
Bye
holidays.
bye.
All
Happy
best. Bye-bye.
holidays. Bye
Bye-bye.
bye.